Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. This is going to be what I call harking back to the original days of the Tea Party. Tea Party, TEA, taxed enough already. I had other plans for this meeting for this month, but as of 2 weeks ago, those plans got scuttled because Longview City Council said, "Hey, we want to pass a $104 million bond," and my old Tea Party self went, "Uh-oh." So we're raising the alarm, and we're going to talk about that tonight. If we haven't formally met, my name is Hunter, and I'm the chair of the People-Longview Tea Party. Before we go any further, if you would join me in prayer, and then we'll do pledges to the United States and Texas flags. If you would please stand. Dear Lord, we thank you for bringing everybody here this evening. We ask you to be in our midst. Guide our discussions, and help us to remember that we are all humans made in your image, and that we are only here by the grace of your Son, Jesus Christ. Thank you for the freedoms that we have to gather together in your name and to discuss ideas and to disagree amicably with each other and to reason with each other. But help us to remember at the end of the day that we are all made in your image and that we are neighbors. Be with those who maybe couldn't be here this evening, and we ask you to keep everyone safe until we meet again. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. If you join me in the pledge to the United States flag over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And pledge to the flag of the great state of Texas. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You can have a seat. For those of you who may be visiting with us for the first time, or the first time in a long time, if I could just take a minute to remind you, we have an information table at the back of the room. Everything on that table with the blue tablecloth, everything on there is available for the taking free of charge. We also have an email sign-up list with a clipboard on the one end of the table, and then there's also another one out in the lobby. If you're not part of our email list, if you would like to sign up, we would love to have you on there. If you have already signed up in the past, you don't have to sign up again. We also have a donation box for the church. This church kindly lets us use their facilities, and so if you would please throw a few dollars into that box just to help us express our appreciation for them letting us use their facility here. Now, the reason that there's not a box for We the People like there has been in the past is because we are changing kind of how we're structured a little bit. If you haven't been following our emails and social media lately, we are maintaining the entity known as We the People-Longview Tea Party as a community association of like-minded persons. But what we're actually doing, specifically me, is I'm forming a for-profit media company that will be used as kind of the primary voice, so to speak, of issues we care about, advocacy efforts that we want to do. And that is mostly because, in my estimate, we already have enough PACs, PACs, political action committees, in this area that do good work, and the leadership of those organizations I consider personal friends. And so we don't need to duplicate what anyone else is doing. But if you think about it, what's a very effective tactic these days is to use online media, video, social media as a way to broadcast message. People are glued to their phones more than ever these days, and so it's important to get in front of those people in ways that maybe hasn't been done in the past, and things are constantly changing. So that's something that I've been doing more lately, and I'm in the process of launching that, and so I will be giving more information on that as we go forward. But anyway, tonight, before we get really into the thick of our discussion, I wanted to make sure part of what these meetings are about is we have an open invitation to anyone who is a candidate for political office or an existing office holder to come and introduce themselves. And so we have Mr. G. Floyd, who's here this evening, and wanted to give him a few minutes. He is the Republican candidate for Gregg County Precinct 4 Commissioner, And so he'll be on the ballot in November, and so I've offered him a few minutes to come up and introduce himself to the group. So, Mr. Floyd?
Good evening, everyone. My name again is G. Floyd. I'm a Republican candidate for Gregg County Commissioner, Precinct 4. And just want to take a few minutes here to just tell you a few things about myself that you may or may not know. Again, I'm running on a platform of Christian values, personal integrity, and credible character, because so much of what we see today in politics is not good for us. And so we have to try to be sure that we elect good people that do good things for the community. I worked with a lady once and she said, it's not that bad people, bad citizens do bad things. It's good people, good citizens don't say anything about it. And then we wonder why it is what it is. But in this race, you've heard and you've read in the newspaper about the mail-in ballots and all those problems. But as I said to somebody else, I would rather lose clean than win dirty. That's me. Amen. I'm going to tell you a few other things about me to confirm that, because I've actually run 2 other races and I lost and I went home. And it didn't bother me at all because I did it the right way. When you do that way, you do things that way, it can come out that way. There, in this particular campaign for the office of county commissioner, I do want to tell you, you are actually living in one of the best run counties in the state of Texas. Gregg County has not had any debt in 14 years. Has a $48 million budget and $56 million in reserves. And $32 million that is unrestricted funds. And so you're in a pretty good place. They're doing a good job for us right now. I am the best candidate in the race. I have an Associate of Applied Science and Mechanical Engineering Technology, and I may not look like it, but I completed that 33 years ago. But anybody that has a degree in mechanical engineering technology that's running for as a road and bridge commissioner is way ahead of the rest of them all the way. In addition to that, I am also, I have a bachelor's degree in political science and pre-law. I have an excellent legal background in some of the work that I've done. The meetings that I have attended, I've attended more Gregg County meetings than probably any candidate ever in history. For the last 2 years, I hardly ever missed. And so anything that the commissioners have had presented to them in the last 2 years, I know about it because I was there. Additionally, and a lot of you in the audience know, I attend the city council meetings also. And so I rarely miss those. And so I'm very much well informed about what goes on in this community. Additionally, and some of you know that I'm formerly an educator, certified educator in the state of Texas here for 22 years. I have the distinction of being a master teacher and a certified specialist for 17 of those years. I attend the Longview ISD school board meetings, sometimes the Pine Tree, Spring Hill, and so I do a lot of meetings. And so it helps me to understand what are the issues here in Longview and Gregg County. Again, the election day is coming up on November 6th, and I just ask you to do 5 things for me. Pray for me. Amen. I need you to pray for me. Pray for the success of the campaign. Register if you're not already. Donate if you can. Volunteer if you would. And vote so that we might win. And again, we've been here. We're part of the party. We're doing those things that help people to know us. We're running hard every day. And I think we're getting a lot of things accomplished. And again, in this race, this is one that has been plagued, again, by some voter fraud. But you know about the probe that has been launched by State Representative Jay Dean and also State Senator Brian Hughes. And so they're going to clean it up for us because we want elections to be fair. We want the people, to whoever they vote for, to serve in those races. So again, I thank you for this opportunity to be able to share. And if you have any questions for me a little later, you see me, and then I'll be glad to answer those questions for you. But again, G. Floyd is the name. You'll see it on the ballot, and it's just like that, G. Floyd. And so I sure do appreciate your voting support. Thank you so much.
appreciate Mr. Floyd being here. For any of you who may not be aware, we also have there is a Republican running for the Precinct 4 JP position, running as Republican, and that's Mr. Darren Rudolph. And so this November, there's actually a pretty historic opportunity to elect the first ever Republican JP4, and it's been a long time since there's been a Republican commissioner at Precinct 4. And so if that could be accomplished, that would be a truly historic occasion. And then just got to work on that the constable. That's the word I was looking for. So anyway, let me make sure. Mark Dickson. We're going to introduce Mark Dickson real quick. Mark is, first of all, he's a pastor, and then second of all, is involved in a whole lot of other things. And last but not least, he's a really great guy. He's a personal friend of mine, and just a great guy. He's got a few things he wants to come up and bring to your attention, and I wanted to give him that platform before we move much further.
Guys, as he said, my name's Mark Dickson, pastor of Sovereign Love Church, and also a director, one of the directors with Right to Life East Texas. And we have been working on a couple different projects. We have, right now, I don't know if you heard the news or not, but there's a case in Tyler, Texas, with a guy by the name of Jonathan Michael. He's 39 years old, and last month, what happened, actually, towards the end of June, he got put in the hospital and ended up, his parents were right there trying to help him out, and here comes along his estranged wife who hasn't been with him for 3 years, trying to pull the plug. And when we heard about this story, we ended up getting involved because we just recently had Bobby Schindler, who's the brother of Terry Schiavo, at one of our banquets, and we saw this as a similar issue that we need to do something to help out. And so we ended up, went to Tyler the next day, met the family, and ended up making a post on Facebook. And before that day was up, that post went viral. And that post at this time has over 9,000 shares on Facebook. We got contacted from reporters across the great blue ocean, and this story was everywhere. Matt Walsh ended up sharing the story, activist mommy shared the story. It just went viral. And the whole world started watching as this case unfolded. And this Wednesday, I just really covet your prayers. The hearing over guardianship is this Wednesday, and it's the parents versus the estranged wife who's been living with another guy for 3 years. And so, very delicate situation. If you are in a position, or maybe your church, maybe you guys have been talking about this, maybe y'all been saying, what can we do to help out? There's several needs with this family. We've been coordinating with different churches. I just got off the phone with Green Acres a little while ago, and we're trying to find church after church after church to just take care of a week at a time. If you're from a small church, and as far as the hotel stay for the parents of Jonathan Michael, and the hotel stay is about $320 for 7 days. And so if that's something you think your church might be interested in, please get my contact information. As far as the legal side of things, Texas Right to Life has stepped in and has helped out a great deal, and we're working with them, doing some different things. Senator Brian Hughes has really been a huge player in this, and just really helping us out from the get-go. It was Brian Hughes that has probably, out of all the people involved, pulled the most strings. And the court case tomorrow, he actually put his name on it as a lawyer. And so that was just really a blessing. And we're thankful for him. We're thankful for all the different people that have been praying up there, sharing the post. And just a great opportunity to stand up for life. And we do believe we're seeing a lot of progress with Jonathan Michael. Hopefully here, I'm optimistic that within the next week or two, maybe we can actually get some response from him personally, either written or something. So we're just we're praying. It's daily progress though. And we just got off the, earlier today, before I walked in here, I was on the phone with a reporter from KLTV, and we have an interview with them tomorrow. And they said that, man, we want to cover more of this story because it's very obvious at this point that had the plug been pulled, this would have been a great tragedy. And that's true because there's so much improvement, so much signs of life there, and so just a very delicate situation. But we have, in addition to that work, so we're fighting for life at the towards the end of life. And just so you'll know, Bobby Schindler, who's the brother of Terry Shivo, told us that we need to be very careful in framing this issue as an end-of-life issue because there were so many signs of life here in the Jonathan Michael case. And with a strange wife trying to pull a plug, he said technically the right classification of this is what's called active euthanasia. That while there are so many signs of life, the wife was trying to pull the plug, which is murder. And so if you ever come across these issues, feel free to reach out to Right to Life of East Texas, and we will do everything we can to help out. On the other side of things, of course, a lot of people know of Right to Life being connected with the fight for unborn life. And over in Shreveport is the closest surgical and medical abortion clinic. And we are actually opening up an adoption center less than 400 meters from that abortion clinic. And it has been crazy. I go over there about 3 days a week, and every Tuesday there's about 20 abortions that happen, every Thursday about 30, every Saturday 50 abortions. So over 100 abortions a week, 3 abortionists. We are doing a lot of work over there, and we're seeing a lot of progress. We're seeing people choose life, praise God. We're connecting them to resources right here in East Texas, because that's where a lot of them are coming from. About half the people that we see pull into that parking lot, they have Texas plates. We're seeing people from with t-shirts on from White Oak High School, Longview High School, Pine Tree. We're seeing people with church t-shirts on, like Mark Lee Baptist Church, and just First Baptist, Kilgore, BSM, different organizations that are Christian. They're wearing these shirts, or they're going in there for abortions. And so our heart is just grieved. Just a few weeks ago, I saw a friend of mine walk in that place, a place of death, and my heart was just completely ripped out, and pleaded with him to the best of my ability, and they had the abortion. And so it's definitely a rough situation. If you think that your church might be interested in getting involved in that kind of ministry, there is a need both on the side of the sidewalk and also for the adoption center that we're opening up across the street. And so a lot of progress. We did not realize it at the time, but right next to the adoption center that we're opening up, there's a massage place that's known for prostitution. So we're actually fighting against that right now. We've been threatened by the owner of that place. And so it's always an adventure, but God has been faithful, and we're seeing anytime you're fighting for life, there's going to be opposition. And I just encourage all you guys, keep on fighting. And if there's anything that you want to talk about with me, I'll be here afterwards. So just come by. Thank you guys so much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you haven't had the pleasure of getting to know Mark, please, it's worth your time. He is involved in so many different things, and he's really, I call him the tip of the spear in the fight for life, both at the beginning and the end. All right, so as I said, we're going to get in our main program here. About 2 weeks ago, suddenly I found myself at a city council meeting, and because I had spent the month of June basically with my head in the state convention clouds, I had not been following city council business as much as I usually do, and I suddenly heard that four-letter word come out of the mayor's mouth, and he said the word bond. And to a Tea Party guy, I mean, that's about as wordy-dirty as you can get, right? And so suddenly the old heart started going, oh my goodness, it's happening again. It seems like politicians just cannot refrain from spending our money, and always asking for more of it. And we have some former politicians in this room, and fellow party activists. So I just want to make everything clear. I did speak against any type of bond issue at the last city council meeting, but I was very clear up front, and I'm here to make doubly clear this evening. My opposition to this bond proposal has nothing to do with support for law enforcement, or firefighters, first responders of any kind. We're not anti-parks, we're not anti-streets. The issue is, how do we pay for that? And if you may not be aware, the City of Longview has a massive annual budget. In prior years, it's eclipsed $160 million per year. I believe it has come down a little bit. In fact, right now we're in the new budget season, and so we're having a series of public hearings that are required for all of that, and the new budget should be passed, I guess, sometime in September, which is its own issue, of course. But what it means is, because we have such a huge budget already, that a lot of it is being spent on what I would consider unnecessary things. They're extra, they're nice things. And then all of a sudden, though, when suddenly we need a huge amount of money, say $33.4 million for a new police station, the issue is not, do we need a police station? I think a pretty good case has already been made, and I've already begun conversations with Chief Bishop, and Brandon is here this evening with the Peace Officers Association. We were having a little bit of a chat before. It's pretty clear that yes, we do need new facilities for our public safety people. We need a few more fire stations because of the growth on the north side. Some of the existing fire stations do need to be renovated to keep up with their needs. And so the issue is not, is this spending needed? It's how do we pay for it? And so my chief complaint to council has been that we're spending so much money on other things that aren't really necessary to local government, that then all of a sudden when we do need a pretty big chunk of change, we don't have it. But then something pops up. I get an email with the city council agenda for this coming Thursday. And there's a funny little item in there. Approval for a $600,000 loan for the old petroleum building to renovate and redo and whatever the specifics are. The specifics aren't quite as important as the concept. City council wants to claim that we don't have any extra money, and yet they somehow found $600,000 to give to somebody, or they're proposing to give to somebody for something that is not a vital function of local government, which is building renovation. That's not a function of local government. Local government is supposed to keep us safe, provide our fire departments, and pay for our roads, and provide sewer. Those are pretty much the only four vital functions of local government. Everything else is just kind of an extra thing. I mean, I'm a musician myself, so am I against promoting local arts programs? No, but it's all, again, how you pay for it. So anyway, I wanted to just kind of quickly go through, and then I will have Wes Brumit come up here in a little bit to provide some perspective as well. Started having some conversations with other people that are fairly engaged and plugged in and have the ability to seek information. And I just kind of wanted to lay out some things for you all this evening, just to have your own information on what's going on here. So also, from a standpoint of how the timeline actually works on this thing. So the several of the city council members have been having town hall meetings, and Ed Moore is having one a week from tonight at the Country Community Center. So those of you in District 1, like myself, I would encourage you to make sure to go. Although these town meetings are not just for that individual district. If you live anywhere, you can come and hear from them. but please go and do it. But unfortunately, when they announced these town meetings, Andy Mack had a virtual town meeting this past Thursday. If you're on Facebook, he broadcasted on Facebook. You can see the replay on the council Facebook page, or sorry, the city Facebook page. But also, it was on City View Television, so it's just available on the website. Even if you're not on Facebook, you can still see it. It was only an hour long, so it's worth it to go and watch it again. The bond proposal was a huge part of the discussion, so it's worth watching just to hear him talk about it. But the deadline to actually call the bond, meaning to say, okay, here's how it's going to actually look, and then to actually pass the resolution to put it on the November ballot. That deadline, I believe, is August 20th. And so then they've been having this series of meetings. But at the town hall meeting, or at the city council meeting week before last, every single person on the city council was expressing support for it and saying, we want to do this, and giving whatever rationale that they had. And so it's become clear to me that they aren't having these town meetings to gauge support to even call it or not. They've already decided to call it. It's just a formality at this point. So still go to the town meeting or the town hall meeting next Monday, but you need to let Ed Moore know that he's my councilperson, so that this is not something that they need to be doing. And so even though it's already going to, we know it's going to be called, we still need to be expressing opposition to it. And I'm going to lay out just a few things here of why we're opposed. So it'll be called by August 20th, so it'll probably be called then at the following city council meeting. And then it'll be on November midterm election ballot. So for any of you that have kind of been thinking, well, around here, the November election doesn't mean a whole lot, why should I go? If for any other reason, please go to vote no on this bond. And then yes, fill out the rest of the ballot, don't just vote on one thing. But it is important, this will be a turnout election for all of the other races, especially the statewide ones. But for those of you that are residents inside the city limits of Longview, this is a good reason to motivate your friends to go and vote and vote no against this. So, let me see here. Got some papers here. So there was a letter sent to the Comprehensive Plan Committee that was sent to City Council back in May, but wasn't really published until the end of June. Wasn't made widely available, I should say. That was detailing basically the recommendations from the Comprehensive Plan Committee to City Council on what should be put on a bond proposal. And Tim, do we have that screen?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to pull it up? Oh, that. Okay, that's on the budget. Did we get, Tim, did you get the one that had the spending broken down?
It's on there.
Into three categories?
The gentleman wanted this, so I'm not sure exactly
You know
what it is.
I'm gonna do this old school stuff.
It's 300 or 400 pages here, so.
Everybody get one. Everybody get one? All right, in my rush to get started, I left these up here and I should have passed them out before. So I just want you to take a second and look through these amounts that we're talking about. So they're broken down into three general categories: public safety / city facilities, infrastructure, and parks. And you'll see some of those huge numbers. And by the way, I want to give credit to Brandy Brown for coming up with these graphics that breaks it down very nicely, so you don't have to do all the math in your head. And you'll see that nice big number there at the bottom, $104 million. So if you were wondering, why is this guy up there ranting and raving about taxes? That's why. $104 million is why. So again, the largest of it, approximately half of it, is proposed for public safety and other city facilities. And so, of course, we're not here to say, no, we don't think we need these facilities. We're here to say, we need to pay for it in a more responsible fashion. So the bond proposal is a 20-year bond. Some people are used to 10-year bonds for like infrastructure and streets and things like that. This is going to be proposed as a 20-year bond. And so, kids that are in high school these days are going to be paying for this bond for the bulk of their adult life. And me, I'm 37, so I'll be paying for this, assuming I live in Longview for the rest of my adult life, which I fully intend to. I'll be paying for it until I'm basically retired. Anyway, so you got $52.4 million for public safety, $27 million for infrastructure, and $24 million for parks. Now, our position really is that infrastructure and parks spending should be done on an annual basis out of our existing city budget. We already do spend quite a bit on streets, maintenance, construction, and then on city parks. But this kind of money is really just makes your eyes roll in the back of your head. So when you just break down into what these are, and I'm going to have Wes come up here in a second because he found some very interesting things. So these recommendations are from the Comprehensive Plan Committee based on what they're saying as a set of priorities. But there have been, according to Wes's research, there's been some discrepancies, shall we say, between what has previously been indicated as priorities for spending, specifically on Comprehensive Plan Committee items, or Comprehensive Plan items, and then capital improvement items, where they're suddenly have been mixed around a little bit with these stated goals. And so it's like anything else. When you dig deeper down into the issue, suddenly you start getting a whole lot more questions than answers. And every time you answer one question, it suddenly brings up a whole bunch of other questions. So just take a look at these, and I don't know, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but these are things that should be paid for on a pay-as-we-go basis. Something that I've already suggested to some leaders is to say, look, if we were going to be truly responsible about paying for these things, we should raise the tax rate now, raise the money, and then when it's done being paid for, reduce the tax rate. So, yes, did you just hear a Tea Party guy suggest we raise taxes? Yeah, but it's kind of like the whole poison pill thing. Of course that's not going to happen. Just the act of suggesting it is not going to make it happen because very few people around here have the guts to actually raise taxes, okay? But they do it through these bonds, okay? So it's a very backdoor method, all right? So they can keep the existing tax rate the same so that when they run for office the next time, they can say, oh, I didn't raise taxes, when in actuality they did because they did it in a backdoor fashion. Then there's also the whole rigmarole about increasing valuations, which increases actual revenue to the government, but without raising the tax rate. And so that's a whole separate discussion. But anyway, I wanted to just highlight these numbers and remind everyone that it's really important to oppose these, not because we're opposed to this type of spending, or I should say the spending on what it actually is, but in how we go. Holding politicians accountable to how they actually spend their money is very important. I wanted to highlight real quick, and then Wes will have you come up. At Andy Mack's virtual town hall this last Thursday night, I made sure to be on there on the Facebook portion and was listening to him try to make his case for why we need to spend more money. And he made some very interesting what do we call it, mental gymnastics, I guess would be the term, on how he was justifying the debt that Longview has. So something very important to know, if you didn't know this, our existing city budget spends 8% of the budget, a full 8% of the annual budget is just to pay an existing debt that the city has, okay? Our tax rate is already some of the highest in the area, and we also have some of the highest debt in the area. And Mayor Mack, and this is not a slam Mayor Mack session, okay? It's just pointing out what he said. He was sitting there trying to say, well, but debt is the only way we can do this. It's the only way we can pay for these badly needed things. And then he made a very unfortunate statement. He said, I don't think there's any cities or any local governments around here that don't have debt. And I immediately responded with Gregg County government and City of Tyler. Now, I'm not here to play comparison with Tyler, but I was just answering his question. He said, well, I don't know of any cities that don't have debt. And I said, City of Tyler. They are our neighbors. And he went on this very interesting, like 3 or 4 minute long speech of trying to justify how Tyler pays for things differently, therefore they're not actually debt-free. And I'm going, that's just not true. That's just simply not the case. They have no general obligation debt. They may have a few like revenue bonds and things, but they have no general obligation debt. Full credit to Brandy for bringing up this information. She went and looked up some of the property tax rates. Tyler, as of really just the last couple of years, has half the tax rate, property tax rate, that Longview has. And yet they have no general obligation debt. Longview has twice the taxes, but 8% of our annual budget is paying on existing debt. So that begs the question, how are our funds being managed? Also, what comes to mind for me is the phrase leadership matters. You know, leadership matters on how we spend our money. Who's leading our city, who's making these spending decisions. You know, I'm not here to make any explicit comments on previous city leadership, previous city managers. Those people are gone. You know, maybe they had, of course, they had things to do, but what matters is what's in current leadership, in current management. What are they going to do with the cards handed to them today? And so it just, these things matter. And one last thing I'll say before I bring Wes up is this whole idea about, oh, well, this $104 million package, it'll only raise the tax rate by 8 cents per 100,000 valuation. And so for a lot of people, you know, that would be about, depending on the value of their house, from about $80 to $160 a year increase in taxes. But for a lot of people, that makes a difference. And when we consider we're already spending a huge amount on taxes already, don't let anyone try to justify a tax increase by it's only a little bit. You have to consider where we've started from. If we're already really high and they want to take it even higher, in my mind that's unconscionable. And then trying to justify it as only, it's disrespectful to taxpayers. And that's probably the strongest language I'll use this evening. It's just trying to say, oh, well, it's only a little bit. Yeah, well, it's only a little bit to take more out of your pocket. It's not right. Anyone that tries to make a moral case that we have to spend more, you need to really question their motives and where they're coming from. So I wanted to just highlight that real quick. Wes, are you ready to come up and give a few comments? I wanted to let Wes Brumit have some time. He is the former Harrison County Republican Party chair, and he's also, well, I'm just giving you bona fides, a reason to listen to him. He's also the current leader of Vocal Pact, and I'm going to let him speak a little bit more about that, as well as some of the information that he was able to come up with on these proposals.
Okay, yeah, as Jeremiah said, right now my current political activity is really dealing with Vocal, which is Voice of Conservatism and Liberty, and our main purpose is just to elect candidates that adhere to conservative principles and philosophy, as well as those same principles going into the city government and stuff. So we try to look at what's going on out there in the state. Mostly we deal with awesome stuff, but when I saw this, like Jeremiah did, couple of weeks ago with this bond package, I was like, man, I gotta look for some information here and see what's going on, because I do live here in the City of Longview, and my taxes will go up just as much as yours will. And so I just wanna kind of look and see, what was being proposed and such. My council member is Kristen Ishihara. We're District 4, I believe. She's the one that actually sent that letter out and made that proposal. She was the committee person or the chairman of the comprehensive plan committee that made out these proposals. So I asked her, I emailed her and said, hey, can you send me some information on this bond package? And she sent me quite a list. And so behind you, I think, behind you is the 2017-18 budget, where the comprehensive plan is actually in there, and you guys can go read it. So if you go to the City of Longview's webpage, look for government transparency or the budget, you can find this comprehensive plan and you can scrub it just as well as I did, okay? So I just kind of want to go over it just quickly with you. The reason why I want to do it quickly is I have a son that's sick and we may have to take him to the hospital, so just want to get that kind of taken care of out of the way. First thing I noticed when I was reading some of the stuff was that Longview, in their budget, and Jeremiah touched on it, last year, or this current fiscal year, is about $160 million annual budget. 70% of it goes to employee compensation and benefits. And I'm not a city budget guy, but that sounds kind of a lot to me. 30% of it goes to everything else, so I'm just kind of, whoa. You know, that was the first thing that kicked out at me. Regarding, when I started going through this, when I go to, there's a couple pages just before what you see behind me, and it's starting to talk about this matrix, and in it, it kind of gives some terminology, and I kind of want to give you the idea of where I'm coming from and what I'm looking at. It says that the plan implementation, it must be prioritized to guide short-term priorities, mid-term priorities, and long-term priorities. And then they go on to say the priorities must be balanced with timing, funding, city staff resources, as well. The recommendations share some level of importance. They cannot all be targeted for implementation within a short time period, and some must be carried out over a long period of time. That's usual. I agree with that. And then when you go down, the short-term recommendations that they're recommending is a period from 0 to 5 years. The midterm is 5 to 10, and the long term is further out. And so, just based on those definitions and assumptions, we start looking at what's going on. It further goes down to what the budget assumptions are, and each one of those, you don't see it here, but further down, you're going to notice that it has a dollar sign attached to each priority that they want to do, or the comprehensive plan that they want to do, but the line item budget. And it's like $1, $2, or $3. $3 being the most expensive, $1 being the least expensive. And so you kind of match those up. The screen that you're looking at there, that first blue square, the columns there, that's the short time frame. And then you got a middle, then you got the longer time frame. And then on the far right, you've got the dollar amount. So in that screen you see there, they've got $1 sign in those items there. I don't know which ones are actually very beginning of it. So that's kind of how that operated. It gives you what the short-term time frame is, what the expected budget is of it, how much they expect to pay on it. So I started following all that with the proposed bond that you guys just had. So starting with the public safety and city facilities part of it, the police department, they're proposing to build a 61,000 square foot facility at a cost of $33.4 million. And when we go down and look at, can you go back up to, actually, yeah, right there. It lists, scroll over all the way to your left. You see those numbers over there? It's got a ranking. There's 27 items that they ranked in priority, from priority 1 to priority 7, or 27, I'm sorry. Okay. And in the police department there, that $33 million, that was ranked number 7 within their comprehensive plan, okay? There's 6 items above that. The fire station, that was actually ranked number 5, there's 5 fire station renovations and such. The training center was priority 12, and then the city hall was priority 9. So those fall within the first, 12 rankings, but there are several in those items that were there that they're not even addressing in those. Okay. For instance, if we go through and take some of these others, like the parks, and I'm just kind of skipping here. The parks, the current park facilities, Broughton, Cargo, Long, reconstruction, those aren't even mentioned in the top 27 priority list. But they're wanting to put that in the bond package. Okay. The park facilities that you see listed down there, the Broughton and the Cargo, they don't rank them, but they want $14.4 million, and they have the highest budgeted amount within the plan, within that section. Okay, so they have $3 signs beside it. And it's a long-term goal. So why are they proposing something that's long-term, that's big item, except for these particular things, when there's other priorities listed ahead of it and lower in budget costs for us? Okay. Again, what Jeremiah said, we're not opposed to firefighters and police department. We need those facilities. We need infrastructure stuff. But we know that government has a core function, and it is not necessarily to provide a living lifestyle to its citizens. Okay. I'm a sports guy, so I love their park and all that such, but it's not a priority, in my opinion. Okay. And speaking of Lear, here's something. When I went to the meeting, I went to one of those town hall meetings on the 24th. David Wright was at it. I think he's District 5. That's up in Spring Hill. I went to that meeting and just kind of listened. Took some notes. And for Lear Park, what they're proposing is to put in artificial turf, put in lights out there for almost all the fields, create 2 more softball fields, 2 more baseball fields, add a couple of sections in addition to the splash pad that's already out there, and add pavilions for quote-unquote sports headquarters or tournament headquarters stuff. And so we know a few years ago that the City of Longview created their park. It was a pet project of somebody, I don't know some names I mentioned already. But this is a continuation of that. Okay, so they're wanting to complete that. But on that priority, it's ranked number 18 on their list of 27. So again, still wondering, why are we putting something that's big budget item ahead of all these other priorities that they're wanting to do that actually costs less? Okay. Back to the infrastructure, there are actually 3 items that they're wanting to do that are not on the priority list. So again, those are just some things that I was looking at when I'm looking at what the proposal is versus what they say they want as a priority and how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take to cost. Why not just go ahead and do the small stuff that they said 0 to 5 years, we can get that accomplished, okay? That's just it in a nutshell. One thing I do want to highlight, the City of Longview, is that, again, our current debt in the city is about $65 million. That's just the general obligation debt. There's another $84 million in revenue debt that we have out there. But I went to the Texas Comptroller's site to look to see what was going on with City of Longview and surrounding school districts and such. Okay. A few years ago, you probably remember Longview ISD passed a huge bond back in 2007. I believe it was a $265 million bond. Well, right now, LSD, and this is 2016 numbers from the Texas Comptrollers. At $351 million in general obligation debt. That's LISD alone. Pine Tree, $91.2 million. Spring Hill, $63.4. Hallsville, if you live on the west side of town, $98.5. That's over $600 million just in school debt that Longview citizens are paying. area across the city. So to add another $104 million, I think that they're responsible. I think we can do a better job in the things that we do need or want. I run, he didn't tell you this, Vocal actually has a page on it that we do. It's called East Texas Legislative Watch, and we are updating information as it's coming in. I appreciate, Randy, some of the information that you brought tonight. I won't get that posted. But if you get on East Texas Legislative Watch, either the blog post or the Facebook page, we're going to be updating that stuff. I encourage you guys, if you're not a part of Vocal or don't know about Vocal, come up and ask me or get my number. I'm going to bolt out here in a minute. It's definitely important that we keep our elected officials accountable to our tax dollars and what they're doing. So I appreciate the time that Jeremiah gave me. You know, one last word. I mentioned Mr. Wright earlier. I went to that meeting. If you hadn't seen what I posted already, his statement, I'm paraphrasing, he said that we can't live on our current budget. To do what we want, we need more money. That's exactly what he said. Yeah. He basically told the 40 people in the audience, 20 of them were city employees, by the way, said, we need more money to do what we want. And then in the budget itself, the conclusion from the actual city manager prior to our current one, David Wood, his conclusion, this is his sentence: the budget meets short-term and long-term goals established by the city council and city management. Within this budget, there continues to be special attention given to maintaining core services while remaining fiscally responsible. I contend if they pass this, they're not being fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Wes. Yes, I want to echo what he said. If you haven't helped out with any Vocal projects before, please get in touch with him. We have their contact information on the back table there. There's one of the brochures there. Be sure to get in touch with Wes. So what I want to do to close out our time together here, just a few minutes left, is to highlight, okay, so now we've made the case about all the existing debt, and I'm glad he brought up the school debt. I mean, when you consider all of the actual debt that Longview taxpayers are paying for, it's not just city, you know, it's also, yes, the county, and then the school debts. I mean, they're huge. And so when each little entity starts saying, oh, well, we only want 8 cents more, it's like, well, it's already on top of everything else. So anyway, so we laid out this case here of why this is such a bad thing. So you're sitting there, maybe some of you are going, okay, well, what do we do about it? So I want to always end on a positive note with what can we actually do. First of all, if you want to contribute to Vocal's part of this, they're going to be the ones probably taking, and I'm not speaking for Wes here, but just based on he and I's conversations, because they are an existing registered PAC, they can do what's more the so-called political speech end of things with paying for certain things. So if you're interested in contributing to that, that'll be an avenue that I'm sure Wes would love to have some help with. From our end, We the People, we're going to be doing our part to try to get out on social media and email and the internet as much as possible. But also then through the media side of things that we're going to be doing, we are going to be operating on a subscription model. And so if you're interested in doing and being a part of that, it will be a very low cost subscription, probably in the order of $5.99, $6.99 a month. So really just the price of 2 cups of coffee at Starbucks or at Coffee Mill, I should say. And that, if we can get enough of a subscriber base going on, that will allow me primarily, because it is kind of my effort, to be much more out there and really digging into these things and getting the word out from a PR perspective on why this bond needs to be opposed. And so if you're interested in that end of things, please go ahead and sign up or put your name down on the email sign-up sheet in the back, and just out to the side indicate indicate that you are interested in being a subscriber. We are going to do a free weekly email just to kind of as a calendar reminder to say, hey, here's some important meetings coming up. Here are some government entities that are having meetings this week, and trying to create general awareness that way. But then on the subscription side of things, we'll be able to dive a little bit more deeper into things that are actually going on, efforts you can be a part of. So I encourage you to sign up for that as well. So we got the vocal side, we have our Tea Party side, and then the media end of things. So with a final note of effort of why should we care? And why should everyone care, not just existing property holders? One common fallacy that is put out there is, oh, well, I rent, so my taxes aren't going to go up because I just rent. And that's not correct, because most property owners, whether you're renting a house or if you have a business that rents from land that you have, your taxes are going to go up. So of course, most people are going to see a raise in their rents or their lease payments, on a business side or anything, because the taxes go up. Very few business owners and property owners are going to be able to eat the cost of the taxes raised on here. So even if you don't own any property or anything, or even if you live outside the city but you maybe do business in Longview, and I know some people here are in that case, this type of thing touches you no matter what stage of life you're in. Even for those of you who are over 65 and your taxes are frozen, there's some people who are going to try to make the case, oh, you should be able to vote for this because it's not going to affect you. And I'm not trying to point at anybody here in particular, I'm just making the case. It is state law, 65, your taxes are frozen. And so some people think erroneously, oh, well, I'm over 65, so my taxes aren't going to go up. No, that's wrong. Your cost of living is still going to go up, even if you're over 65. And so all of you who that age fits you, please be getting out to your friends to say, hey, don't believe the lie that your taxes aren't going to go up. And also, just as a sort of a strategy type recognition, and I'm not going to sit here and accuse anyone of out and out wrongdoing, but I am going to highlight a point. City leadership knows that the midterm elections are usually a little bit of a down participation year. Our turnout is usually lower in a midterm election than in the presidential years. That's pretty well accepted. So I find it extremely disconcerting that in May of this year, which was right after the mayor got sworn in and Councilman Moore got sworn in for another term, and they both ran unopposed, within weeks of being sworn in on their second term, this comes up. They also know that by putting it on the November ballot, turnout's going to be lower. Who are usually the people that vote in the turnout election? The older generation, okay? This is not bashing the older generation. It's actually commendable to the older generation. Y'all are the ones that vote consistently, even in the midterm elections and the spring municipal elections. It's the older folks that vote. But also, as I just said, unfortunately, there's a large segment of the older generation that think that their taxes won't go up because their taxes are frozen. And so they're more likely to vote for something like this because they think that it doesn't affect them. Again, not trying to bash older people, okay? I'm just stating a fact of election strategy, okay? And so it bears thinking of the fact that the current city leadership has seen an opportunity to pass $104 million because they think they have a really good shot at winning because turnout is low, and the turnout that is there is usually the older generation that is, by and large, more than likely perfectly fine with passing this. So I'm just saying, from a strategy perspective, keep that in mind. But alert your friends. Talk to your neighbors and say, hey, $104 million is $104 million. And we really need to get the word out to say no. Also, your friends that maybe think, as I said earlier, oh, well, it's November election in Gregg County, City of Longview, doesn't matter. We don't have any opposed races except for Precinct 4. And so if you don't live in Precinct 4, you might be thinking, oh, well, it doesn't matter, it's just a foregone conclusion. No, you need to get out there and vote for this. Yes, vote for the rest of the ballot as well, because we do need to show that turnout. So that's my call to action. We have a few minutes left. If anybody has any specific comments, or maybe something they'd like to bring up for my possibly to either answer or just to maybe get some of my thoughts, we'd love to hear it. Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I'm just speaking here.
Sure.
You know, the city's gonna have to do, they're gonna have to do a bond, and you know, when I look at these lists, I kind of roll my eyes. The police department is in dire need for more space where they're at. There's no doubt about it. The fire needs more things. But when I look at these lists, when Wes was going through it, it's just hard for me to take this list very serious when I don't see a turning lane in front of Walmart and Lowe's, and I don't see a turning lane along High Street in front of Walmart, Jones, and Developmental Services, Kilgore College down. I don't see that on any list here. And so I think a bond's going to happen. But I also, you know, I hope there's enough time to kind of alter the course on what is put on the ballot. I do not support banning for my tax dollars AstroTurf and Clear Park, AstroTurf and soccer fields. I don't think that's functional government. When I first saw the $104 billion, you know, I thought of fat kids in a candy store. I mean, I was actually surprised. So the city does have needs. Sometimes the city has had a tendency to wait too long and always trying to play catch up. And, you know, on the park deal, you know, they do bring the parks do bring a lot of people from out of town and stuff. But at some point, billions of dollars later, they should pay for themselves. And that's when I saw this, the AstroTurf and soccer field is $8 million for your farm. And you know, I know firsthand when I see that, as opposed to where the detectives are at the police department, they're out of the room. Now, as far as we need resources at the police, there's just no doubt in my mind. But I've gotten mixed signals because I forgot what that said. One thing I've heard is expand what we have in the same area right there. Expand the facilities there, maybe with the joint parking and stuff. Heard that. I've heard that one that you had up there, like I said, a satellite station, I'm assuming in North Longview. So it's not real clear where that's going. And Sunday, someone said, oh, they're going to move other offices where they lease from and move them to the existing police station. And you know, I do think it's early, and I think the city council should have more time. But to me, there should be a lot more information than what we have up here. Well, that's a lot of money. It affects all of us the rest of our life. And I don't think anybody. I've never minded paying taxes. I mind what my taxes go for. You know, as long as they're being spent reasonable. You know, these buildings here, the police and fire station, I've done the math. It's $530 to $550 a square foot. You know, and I don't understand it. You know, I don't. But I'm hoping it's enough time and enough discussion that some of this changes by the time it actually gets on the ballot.
Right. So if you also want to take some time on the city website, on the City View TV section, they have recorded meetings for, I want to say, the last at least a year, if not 2 years. And so certainly the last couple of months, there was a city council had a work session on June 28th, I believe it was, where there was about a 30-minute section where Kristen Ishihara, she was the liaison, the council liaison to this committee that put this together. She did about a 30-minute presentation on going through these items where you can really hear on these different items specifically on all the details about what they were recommending. I wasn't, of course, going to take 30 minutes to go through it because we wanted to get a broader picture. But it's interesting on some of the things of how they phrased it. Well, here's why this needs to be this way or that needs to be that way. And I just want to bring it back to what I was saying earlier. Me specifically, our group in general, what our philosophy is, it's not that we're opposed to spending money where it's needed. The question is it needed? So on some of the public safety stuff, yes, there's absolutely a case to be made for either expanding facilities or getting new facilities. There's a certain case to be made there. But yeah, for some of this other stuff, the infrastructure and parks, those are not essential city services. And so suddenly being asked for $27 million for one category, $24 million for another, it's just insane. Gary?
I'd just like to say that aside from the police and fire expenditures on here, the rest of this, I have a hard time making other people pay higher taxes for something that I think would be nice to have.
That's a good way to put it. It goes back to the idea that, you know, some people think, oh, well, I don't vote in Longview, I don't live in Longview, so this doesn't matter. No, it absolutely matters, because it does affect everyone, no matter where they are. Just as a one note, at the last council meeting, I did approach Chief Bishop to let him know, and Chief Steele for that matter, to let them know that I wanted to be sure that they understood that me personally and us as a group, that of course we support our firefighters and our law enforcement personnel and support their work. Again, it's just how do we pay for it is the question. And they both assured me that they understood our position and they don't think that we're somehow, you know, anti-law enforcement or anything like that. And in fact, Chief Bishop, I want to give full credit, he offered me a tour of their facilities. And so I will be taking him up on that here just as soon as we can coordinate our schedules. If allowed, I will take as many pictures as I'm allowed and videos as I'm allowed. And you know, I'm guessing he wants to make the case on why it is that we need a $33 million police station. I did ask him straight up. I said, look, we've got all these empty buildings around town. It's a fact that we have so many of these empty buildings around town, yet so many businesses come in and just build a brand new building. So why can't we just take one of these existing buildings and renovate it for the fire department use, police department use? And he said that they had a study done fairly recently, I guess, that concluded that it actually is less money to build from the ground up because of the specific needs that goes into a modern police department. That it's actually cheaper to build from the ground up than to take an existing facility and renovate it. As hard as it is for me to believe that, because I'm not a construction guy, I have to say, okay, well, I mean, he said it, so I'm going to have to take him at his word. I'd be interested to actually see the study for myself, but of course, I'm not going to stand up here and say the Chief Bishop was trying to say something untrue. I'm sure he meant what he said, and it's probably true. I mean, I do understand that sometimes for highly specialized situations, it is cheaper to build from the ground up. But again, it just goes back to how do we go about accomplishing that is one of our things. So we're going to go ahead and it's 8:30, so we're going to go ahead and close it down. Someone's still hanging out here for a little bit while we break down. If anyone has any more specific questions or comments that you'd like to make, certainly if you want to get with me about helping to subscribe to our new media venture, please let me know because we're in the process of launching that. And if you need any extra copies of the general categories proposed here, these regarding the actual breakdown of the bond itself. So there is something to do with state law and how bond elections are done. They apparently have to be broken up into specific categories of use. So they can't just say, we're going to have $104 million. They have to have it into these separate categories. So yes, in terms of the actual bond, how it's going to be issued, that does remain to be seen. But it can, based on what I was hearing, it's probably going to be these categories as stated, and these amounts, it's probably going to be fairly close to what is stated here. There won't be a whole lot of change. So again, it still goes back to saying, all right, well, silver lining is, okay, maybe there will be people that want to vote for the public safety bond but against the infrastructure and parks. Well, okay, that's good. We'll see what passes. But that's really the only positive thing, I guess, is that, oh, well, maybe we won't be saddled with all of it. We just saddled with part of it. You know, well, when is a tax increase ever a big thing? Our contention is never, because what are we again? Taxed enough already. Thank you all. Our next meeting is in October. Please put it on the calendar and be sure to join us. We're going to be having having some great information passed there about the bond election. Of course, we'll be weeks away from there, but we're going to also have some great guests lined up that I'll be confirming here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be making those announcements. And hope to see you then, and bring some more people with you. Let's get the word out about this. Y'all have a great night.